Good evening, guys. Welcome to the show. Welcome to I Want to Believe Presents. It's Not an Orbit, it's Dust. With myself, Peter Wren, and a lovely chatty Cathy.
Hello. How are you doing, Peter?
I'm good. I've been busy week. I've got next week off, so we've got a lot of projects coming up with fundraising and stuff like that. So we had like a kind of a binge of emailing people during COVID about fundraising ideas and stuff like that, just to keep ourselves open. And lo and behold, there's been all of a sudden over the last couple of weeks, we've been influx with those responses with some of the ideas, and it's just a case of trying to prioritize and categorize whether we've actually got the capacity or not to do it or
right.
not. But, yeah, we've got some interesting things coming up from our side. We've got some more investigations coming up for the O'Keefe Ranch, and we've got that camping weekend as well that we talk about. That ghostly.
When is that again? It's going to be June, right?
It's June. It's the weekend, last weekend of June, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. You got me on the spot, but yeah, it's a Friday to Monday gig, and we're just working on the advertising at the moment now. But it's not really primarily us as being the host the whole weekend. There's a lot of different. Lots of other people that are joining us for the event as well. So it's a kind of it's going to be interesting for sure. We've got this spiritual, we've got some readings going on there as well. So kind of a full circle of the paranormal field, but in one weekend kind of thing. So it's good. We're really looking forward to it.
Well, that's all right.
Then there's that, and then we just got back from the coast at the weekend down in Vancouver, and there was an old place we visited down there as well, and I'm still recovering from the journey back. I think like the late night as well.
But the investigation went well, or
it was it was good. It was kind of it was a bit of a big build up, and then we were there for like 2 or 3 hours, and it was good. Like there were some legitimate things that happened with the like EVPs. We heard like a voice ourselves as well, and there was some things moving as well, and we also got a couple of very clear voices as well come out the spirit box as well, which had jumped out of us with zero static, which correlate names of the owners of the building and stuff like that. So it was pretty good fun. So, but what about yourself? Sorry, I'm chatting away.
Oh, that's okay. Well, not much is new over here. I did go back. I was on a kind of a hiatus off of my own, YouTube channel. I did go back this week. It was lots of fun. So those of you that like to watch reading shows like tarot readings, psychic readings, and stuff like that, you can go to my channel, Oracle Intuitions. As you know, I don't really do a lot of investigations now, but it's interesting because we've been getting called for doing some consultations, and that's been lots of fun. I don't really particularly go out to the houses, but I've had a couple of teams ask for our opinion, ask to take a look at some stuff. So it's been fun, actually. It's kind of nice. I don't like to spend a lot of time on it simply because, we're more involved in the show and stuff. And I love hearing other people's stories and talking to other investigators. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was kind of good.
Yeah, it's nice also sometimes to take that step back from investigating as well, because it gets very overpolluted and stuff like that. And it's one of the gracious things about COVID, kind of with me, as I was talking to our guests about earlier on, it kind of gave me that moral sense of paranormal home life, that kind of thing, and it kind of helped me weigh things up a lot better, which is more manageable at the moment, but it starts swaying every now and again, and you just got to keep that kind of bridge in order, kind of thing.
You definitely got to find the balance, right? Like it's
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you guys like the show and you want to see more, and please, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel and click on notifications. Thank you. Was that you making a noise? Was that me?
Yeah, it was my phone. I'm just using it right now, so that it kind of corresponded though with the
No, I was like, did you add some audio to it? Anyway, so this week's guests, these guys come out of Vancouver, British Columbia, from the Lower Mainland area. They originally started back in 1988, founded by a guy called Calvin, which I'll bring him on very shortly. Group is called Coldspotters, and let's welcome Calvin and Marlene to the show.
Hi.
Welcome,
Hi, Pete. Hi, Cathryn.
Hello, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you both.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. So, Calvin, you're the founder of the Coldspotters. So, tell us a little bit about the history and how you started. Why you started.
I just have to say that's impressive. 1988, like that's a good time to keep going, and like you guys deserve an applause.
You know what? That's pretty impressive for Britain.
It is. It really is.
Well, that's
I started it in 1988 with a friend of mine, and I mean we grew up watching the horror movies and playing with Ouija boards and just all the kid games that you do, Bloody Mary in the bathroom. And I bought myself a brand new RCA full-size VHS video camera when I got out of high school. And one night we just, hey, let's go to the graveyard. So we did that, and we just started going and going. And we didn't have a name or anything, and I was trying to think of a name. And where the name actually came from was from two different ideas. I just finished reading the novel version of the Amityville Horror. And in the epilogue of the book, they go through, the author, and explains certain paranormal instances and what they're called. And one of them was cold spots. And so I thought, that's actually pretty cool. So I always kind of had that in the back of my mind. And then, of course, Ghostbusters, because I was so huge back then.
Oh, yeah.
So it just sort of came to me, and my buddy, he thought that was just the stupidest name he'd ever heard. And but we actually did a few residential investigations, but we had absolutely no idea what we were doing back then. We didn't have any equipment except for one video camera. And then it would kind of, the group did go through various periods of stasis, of course. I did a little bit of investigating in the early mid-90s. But it didn't really come into its original form, modern, I guess, anatomical form, until 2012. And that's when we kind of went into social media and tried to start building the concept and the brand that we have today. So, basically it started off with Amanda and myself back in 2012, after we had met through Meetup. And we just decided, hey, let's just form our own group and see where it goes. And I said, well, it just so happens and I wasn't sure about telling her the name because I'd already had bad feedback from it once before. So I gave her the name, and she thought that was absolutely fantastic. And we just went from there, and the growth began.
That's
the name. The name itself is pretty cool because it has a huge overlap in relation to what we do as investigators as well. And essentially that, we look for we look for heat changes, we look for thermal changes and stuff like that. We look for cold spots as well. So
exactly. And I didn't want to have a name that was geographically confined to one area. I didn't want to be known as the Westminster Paranormal Society. What if one of us moved or just whatever, right? And so I just thought, something we could take anywhere.
Pretty cool. It's good.
Yeah, thank you.
So what was the origins of you actually being interested in the field then?
Okay, so what happened was, apart from just all the silly games we used to play when we were kids, when I was it was like 1977, I guess I was 9 or 10 years old. And we lived in this large house. This is in northern Alberta in Peace River, where I'm from. And I started this was kind of slowly over the course of time. I would start hearing these footsteps coming down the hallway towards my bedroom, but I never really paid much attention to it. But it would be like the footsteps coming, but never actually arriving kind of thing. And I would ask my father about it, and he just said it was, I think he just said it was air pockets in the furnace pipes or something, boom, 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 boom. So I kind of bought that. It wasn't scary or anything. And but then it just kind of happened. It just kept happening, and it actually sounded like somebody was walking down. I'd get up and look out the door. There's nobody there, and so it started to kind of freak me out a little bit. And one night I'm laying in bed, and I was a night owl even when I was a kid. And I heard the footsteps, but they actually arrived at my door, and I looked. Yeah. And now this is the part where, I went, at the conclusion of this, I went screaming down the hallway to my parents' room and, jump kick the door open. But my parents, they've just been convinced ever since that I was just sleeping and dreamed it. But this large hooded figure, like this dimensional kind of figure with no features, just some sort of black humanoid kind of
the Grim Reaper type of hooded robe kind of.
Yeah. And I just had this paralysis, and it came into my bedroom, and the sound it was making was the exact sound that the footsteps were making in the hallway.
Wow.
That was one of the things that I remembered. And on that particular instance, I couldn't move. I couldn't even make any sound. And I think I just passed out just from fright. And the next thing I know, it's morning. And then it happened again a couple of days later. And the interesting thing about the second encounter was, I started to kind of freeze up again, but just something gave away, and I was able to jump up, and I ran through this thing, and it felt like a cold blast. It was like when you open a freezer door at the Safeway and you get hit with that cold air. Right. That's what it felt like, and that's when I went booted it down, and my poor father went from laying down to standing up at about the speed of light, and and he thought maybe somebody had broken into the house, and just something I had repressed for a long time, right? Because I didn't know what it was, and every once in a while I'd bring it up and either get laughed at or whatever, right? And so many years later, when the coin was turned, I just decided it had to have been a shadow man. And learned a lot of other people had the same experiences, where it comes into your room and you freeze up, and you don't really know what their function is, because they come in and they just kind of sort of stand there and stare at you. You don't really know what they want. You don't know if they're a ghost.
Were you frozen? Like, was it like the sleep paralysis where you can't move, or were you able to still move?
No, the first time around it was full paralysis, and I couldn't even articulate any noises except for some gurgling sounds. But the second time around, the paralysis started, but then it ended fast, and I trucked it out of there fast.
Right.
After that, the visitation never happened again. About 7-8 years later, I was in I think I was in high school, and I was in the same bedroom, and I heard the footsteps again. Very briefly, but of course I was a lot older, and the lights went on and everything, and just anyways, that the footsteps went away, and that was it.
Right.
I never heard that again. So that's the closest I've ever come to actually having a visual in my paranormal experiences, I believe.
Well, and to have it young, that kind of it's not one of the things that you really want to see when you're just a kid, right?
No, that's something I could have passed on.
My son had paralysis once, and he was saying that, the same kind of thing, not the hooded figure so much, but other things. And it was interesting because he was quite young at the time, and he went and Googled it. I mean, nowadays we have Google. And he was like, "Oh, that was sleep paralysis. This is what I had last night. This is what I did." And I knew what it was right away. And I was like, "Okay, I should bring you on an investigation, because you got more common sense than some of the adults that we deal with."
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it can be very well explained, and who knows? Maybe I was asleep. I don't think I was asleep. I don't remember myself being asleep.
It's hard to say, right? Like, but I mean, it's so scary. Like.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have the internet back then to take a look at some of these things. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because what you were saying about, going and doing a few home investigations, Peter and I have talked about this many times. And when I was, back in, early 2000s, I guess, there were no teams. There was nobody that would help you.
That's right.
At that time. And so, it's kind of too bad you weren't in Alberta.
Right? Yeah. I think back then you had to contact the university's psychic research department or something, right?
Or it was a medium or a psychic that would charge you thousands of dollars, or I'm getting feedback. Or you're pretty much just stuck on your own. And in my case, I sold my house. So I was just like, okay, I'm done. We're out of here. that was the end of that. So Marlene, when did you start with the team?
I started 8 years ago. I went to the famous meetup luncheon that Calvin spoke about. And I just took an interest and said, I would love to help. And at that time, I said, I love to do research. I love history, fact finding. So that kind of became my in. So yeah, I do love it. It is quite a passion of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have experiences as a kid that kind of got you into it, or what were your first experiences that drew you into, investigating, or just having an interest in it?
Yeah. When I was 5 or 6, my grandparents had both passed away, and they were very old. And then this was the early 70s. And at night, I would be like in my bed, and I didn't really understand the concept of death. And I could see my grandfather peeking around my bedroom door, and I would wave to him.
Aww.
And and I would just, it was so natural for me to see him, and I didn't think anything different of it. And then one day I saw both him and her. And the one thing I always remember is, this is going to sound crazy, they were both very sparkly. Like they had a lot of light around them, like really sparkly and bright. And when I told my mom was kind of, and I remember one day she was tucking me in, and she said, now no more visits from Nana and Papa. I don't want them scaring you. And I didn't understand, but I remembered her saying that, and I never saw them again.
Oh,
crazy.
Yeah. So I, but I was very close to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Were you
that's
close
when I
to them
really
when they were alive as well?
Pardon me?
Were you close to them when they were alive as well?
Yeah, very close. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so,
did you understand the concept of death at that time? Like, did you understand that they had, so like, as far as you were concerned, you were seeing them?
Yeah. And my parents didn't tell me that they had died. They died within a couple months of each other. They just kept saying, oh, Nana and Papa are away right now. So I think that left a door open per se for me.
For sure.
I didn't understand. And then it was many, many years later, my husband at the time and I had purchased a house through an estate sale. And it was this big house that him and her had built. They raised a family in. The family was long gone. They had passed away, and we had moved in and started renovating. And so many things started to happen. And I ended up by calling, I actually called UBC because I was like, I need some help here. Like, things are happening in my house. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I got referred to VPS.
Name rings a bell.
Yeah. So they came and did an investigation, and they gave us a lot of information and stuff. And, after that, I was kind of like, being on the flip side as a person that was asking for an investigation and being scared to ask and saying, oh God, I hope they don't think I'm crazy with all that's happening in my house. And then watching them do it and being on the sidelines and watching, I was like, wow, this is cool what they do. Like they, I was left with a sense of, validation.
Yeah.
And also just some good tools to work with, and that obviously something was happening in the home. Right. And how to figure out how to move forward with it. So
cool.
Yeah. So just to jump back to Calvin, I've got a question. You mentioned that when you started investigating, and obviously in the late 80s, early 90s, the paranormal back in the UK was a very, very taboo subject. Like, you wouldn't even bring it up. in front of your family and stuff like that because they think you're a fruitcake or anything like that. What was that? Describe that transition time when you had those experiences. Then you suddenly realised that there are teams out there that can help. And how did you, when was that moment you hit that, that moment where you knew that there was, resources out there?
I guess that would have had to have been probably early 2000s, I think, when I started hearing about other groups coming up, and I just started doing a lot of research and, just finding out, I mean, the one thing I realized was that no matter how many investigations you do and no matter how much intel you gather, I mean, we're all still we're amateur ghost hunters, paranormal investigators. There's no experts. There's people that can be experts on certain subjects, whether it's some discipline in the occult or demonology or whatever. But I would have to say it would be early mid 2000s, and it was a lot of late night reading, I tell you, and just trying to learn as much as I could, and tried doing a little networking with other people and just going to graveyards. That was the thing, right? Just boots on the ground, right? Getting out there and doing stuff. And I have to say it, when I started doing it sort of a lot more consistent, it did scare me a little bit. I was a little bit tripped out because, you see things, you hear things, especially when you're outside, and for any new investigators out there, they'll go through the same thing where you're out in a cemetery at 2:00 in the morning. And when you're in a cemetery at 2:00 in the morning, every noise is paranormal. When you
even internally.
Yeah. And the famous orbs, right? It's just everything is paranormal. And then you start to talk to other people, and you learn and you realize, okay, no, you gotta, the whole concept of debunking and being skeptical of the evidence that you're gathering and learning how to sort of decipher a little bit
between this and that.
Yeah. So it's been quite the journey.
That's the thing about the field. It's ever evolving, and like with us as well, we're ever educating ourselves. We're never, like you mentioned, we're never going to be experts, but we could study particular subjects like photography with cameras, debunking and things like that. And
that's right.
Obviously, when people start as well, their opinions change by the day, and mine's changed so many times over the years about what I believe is actually there. In comparison to now, and I'm probably, and you guys will probably agree as well, probably a lot more skeptical now to what it was when I first started. And like you, it was just like the first investigation I went out on. I made myself physically sick because I was so, the adrenaline was pumping for like 6-7 hours and nothing happened. But it was every creak and bang that was in that house was, oh my God, back then we never spoke about demons or anything like that, but I was expecting like things to fly off the wall and stuff like that, but it just didn't happen. It was a bit of a really or anything like that. But Marlene, your first investigation, how did that feel for you? Like, what was your
goodness, you're making me go back in my head here. Where were we?
I know.
You know what? I remember being really nervous, and of course I didn't come with a lot of equipment. I bought a couple things, but I wasn't sure what to get. And Milt, who is our tech guru, I mean, once I met him and I'm like, okay, what do I need? And he set me up and hooked me up with everything. But I just remember being really nervous, and I was expecting craziness. You have this expectation that everything is going to happen, and and the paint's going to peel off the walls, and then in the end, it's more like watching paint dry. But yeah, I had this expectation, but I was really nervous, but I was also really excited. But I also remember the next day, the crash, like you were talking about the paranormal hangover, Pete, like, oh my gosh. And I think it was just all that adrenaline buildup. But yeah, I still love it. I'll still stay up till 4:00 in the morning.
You can spend months and months doing what we do and not get a thing, and then all of a sudden, just that one thing happens, and then it's like, it's like catching that big fish. That's it.
Yeah.
it's made it all worthwhile, kind of thing. Those hours.
Yeah. I
Just
mean,
sitting-
we've had a couple of instances where, I don't know, just whatever stars wanted to align for us. And when we're in Overland Mansion, and I believe this was in 2016, probably the first year we started going there. And we're in this house, and I don't know if you've ever seen this place, but it's a massive, rambling old mansion, and it makes a lot of noise, you know, creaks and whatnot. But we're in there, and we were just setting up and running cables and whatnot. And I'm upstairs setting up one of the static cams, and Milt's down at the monitor sightlining me. And right beside my head, it sounded like someone slammed their hand into the wall. And I jumped 10 feet in the air, and everybody heard it, and they thought it was me. And of course, we didn't have any cameras or recorders going because we were just in setup. But the whole night was absolutely insane. It was foot stomping and it was just one of those nights where it all came together. And it actually happened so much that I thought somebody was messing with us. And, so I think at some point we stopped the cameras, turned all the lights on, and did a walk around. Security check, just to make sure somebody wasn't up there hiding in a closet messing with us.
Wow.
That's about as rare an instance as we've ever had. But like Marlene said, a lot of the time it's just a lot of sitting around, and you have to really love the people that you're with when you're doing that, because be really good friends.
Yeah.
You have to be.
How many times have you guys
together?
Yeah, how many times have you've been to the mansion?
We've been to the mansion at least, I'd say 15 times or so.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of it was over the past, I'd say between January of 2020, maybe December 2020 to this past New Year's Eve. We spent New Year's Eve there.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would have been fun.
Yeah, but especially
Yeah.
between January and March of 2021, especially, it was carte blanche.
Right.
Every weekend we could be in there if we wanted, and we started to get a little bit of overland fatigue after a while, right?
Yeah,
and we're just going there because we could stay overnight. They gave us the keys, and we just sort of could come and go as we pleased, and we'd stay for the whole weekend. And
yeah, but it was interesting to note, though, during COVID, that mansion is used a lot for filming. They're constantly cleaning it. They use it at Christmas for big Christmas extravaganzas,
Right.
because it's attached to a care home, and the care home owns the mansion, and it's part of their, it brings in money for the care home. And during COVID, of course, all of that was shut down, and no one was using that home. No one was really going in there. I mean, you clean it once, you're good to go. I mean, there's no furniture or anything in there.
Yeah.
So we noticed when we were in there during COVID, it was so much more active than we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Really?
And we kind of wondered, is it because no one's been in there for so long? Like, it was interesting. Like, we noticed it really ramped up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe they felt like they didn't have any borders as well. Like, nobody's walking around, nobody's there. So kind of freedom for them too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It does. It kind of bonds onto the question, because there's a lot of theories about spirits and ghosts, about the manifestation due to energy, that kind of thing. And when a place goes silent or dead for that amount of time, it makes you wonder exactly how that theory kind of runs through, because whether it's actually an intelligent being in there that's all of a sudden got lonely, and then here comes Coldspotters, here we go, let's go. Everything starts ramping up, the lights come on in the house, and
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, but we noticed it for sure, and we're like, what the heck is going on here? Like, we've stayed there many times where it's nothing happening, nothing caught.
Yeah. Well, on the last one, I think it actually was in October. Happened in October and January. We stayed there for Halloween, and the Halloween weekend. On that particular one, we usually will set up the cameras, recorders, and then around 11 o'clock at night, we'll go to Boston Pizza and get something to eat, and just let the cameras capture what might be there without us there to trump around. And we came back and we're listening to some of the footage, and we could hear these footsteps, and you could literally hear the soles of the, like, you know, that squeaky kind of, you know, sneakers on hardwood kind of sound. And it was all over the place, but we didn't hear any doors opening, no doors closing, like, just, you know, and I messaged the manager of the facility and asked her, was somebody in here? Is there a caretaker? Does somebody have access? And we were the only ones with the keys. And she's like, nope, nobody was there.
Wow.
And we alarm it before we leave. Like, we lock the doors and turn the alarm on. So, you know,
if anything was in there, they would have either had to have a key or they were already in there.
That's right.
Already in there. Yeah.
We were convinced there was intruders. Like, it was that pronounced.
Wow.
And we were just like, wow, like, do we need to have a stakeout here? Like, someone's in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how, you know, that's how much we were convinced this is a real living person in the house messing with us.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm still kind of leaning that way, that someone, you know,
got in,
you know, because that just sounded way too much like someone walking around.
You didn't see anything on the cameras, though, right?
No. And there
So
were cameras in these rooms.
Yeah. Because you're kind of thinking, you know, if somebody's like walking around, you might not know where all the cameras are. They're probably going to walk in front of one.
Yeah.
You know, by accident, or, you know, you're just screwing around. You know, if you don't know where all the cameras are, you can end up.
I've got a whole bunch of these, and I have them peppered all over the house. So you're pretty much going to walk into its sight line at some point.
Right. So that, you know, again, it kind of goes to the theory that, you know, if it's not a person, what the hell is going on, right?
Like, so we couldn't explain it, so it went into the files of interest folder.
Interesting folder.
Yeah.
So with the obviously, Marlene, you're a big buff in history as well. With the history, what you've know of the place, did you manage to solidify any of the evidence you got with the history of the place?
The history of the place, I mean, the Peters family that built it, he was a huge, he became a general store manager. And there is this huge store that used to be back east in Winnipeg in Ontario. And he managed that. And then he built the house in Burnaby, and they moved out here and they opened one in Vancouver. And they imported a lot of expensive dry goods, teas, and, you know, all sorts of things that were hard to get. And I notice that when we're in there and we are talking about food, or we have food, or we bring food, we sometimes will hear more sounds and more knockings and get more responses. But there's been very little information that we can find about the members of the family. And we know that there is a little girl in the house. He had a daughter. She was very young. His wife died and she died. And the little girl has been physically spotted by staff of the care home and other people. And they assume it's a real little girl. Like, she runs around, she's laughing, and, you know, they're unsure. They're like, how did a child get in here? What's going on? And now, I mean, they all know. And that's one of the things. We bring toys. We try to, you know, direct it towards the little girl. But yeah, we've noticed when we talk about food, stuff happens. So it kind of correlates with the history of Mr. Peters.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, this little girl just about gave a caretaker a heart attack one day.
Yes.
There was a maintenance guy in there and just doing some work. And when you walk into the house, there's like a grand staircase that goes up, sort of, it's like the centerpiece of the house to the second floor, big vaulted ceilings. And he was doing some work on the banister on the flight of stairs going up. And he happened to look up where the stairs, you know, cross over. And there's a little girl looking at him through the banister. And he, you know, didn't think much of it at first, right? And then he asked when he was leaving, did somebody bring their child to work? Oh, you met the ghost. Oh. So, and I guess he's never been back.
I'd like to meet the ghost.
Totally.
You know, I've been there by myself, because that's when the odds are that they say, you know, if you're alone, something could happen. And so I've been there many, many times by myself in the pitch dark, sitting there in the middle of the floor, just hey, y'all come talk to me if you want, and just nothing. So the odd bang or something, but that's about it.
Wonder what would happen if you laid out like a little picnic or something like that, just
not a bad idea.
Yeah. Right. Especially if they like food, just gonna lay it out and put some cameras around.
Like food.
And some toys or something like that. She might just have her own little tea party.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yep. Teddy bears,
Yeah, we usually have our teddy bears and dolls, and we have balls, and we have blocks.
Yeah. And then lay a little food and tea party kind of thing, and put the cameras around. I don't know.
But I believe we have captured her, or what we think might be her, on EVP a couple of times, but not sure. Hard to tell. But.
Yeah. Huh.
Interesting. So what's your Marlene, what's your favorite type of investigation? Would it be the public or residential kind of cases?
You know what? I love both. I love the residential, because, just the fact of being able to help somebody or make them feel better, validate them. And sometimes, and most often not, actually, not sometimes, most often not, it's not paranormal. It's like, well, look, your TV goes off on its own because it's a smart TV and it has a 3-hour timer, things like that. But just to help people and just, it's interesting to be in someone's home or someone's business and just try to capture what they're talking about and validate what they're talking about. And I do love that. But I love the public events too. We always host luncheons, and we have public tours and outings that we take people on. And I love watching everyone, and they're walking around and they're in a location that is active, and one of them gets something, and just their excitement. Right. I love that, because I remember that excitement when I first started. I love it.
No, that's awesome. You're keeping that torch, that foundation, while we become a part of this field alive with the public as well. You go out and because a lot of teams that I've interacted over the years, they're very kind of standoffish from public and stuff like that. But it's a foundation of why we become paranormal investigators, or we got into the field. Like everyone has a story. Even non-believers have a story. They say, "Oh, we don't believe in it," and stuff like that. But there was this time.
This one time,
kind of standoffish and stuff like that. So, the same question to you, Calvin. What's your favorite type of investigation? Residential, public, or?
I do kind of prefer the public a little more. It took me a while to get used to residential investigations, because what I found was there was how do I put this nicely? Well, okay, just as an example, about 7-8 years ago, we did this residential in just a part of town, and we went there, and they had invited the neighbors over, and
a huge party.
It felt like a dog and pony show.
Yeah, I know.
And so what I discovered was sometimes, and there's guidelines we'll give residential people when we do residentials. You have to adhere to these: no more than 1 to 2 people. That kind of thing. So there's a bit of training going on. With public places or historic places, you do have a lot more freedom. It's you can be a little more experimental,
right?
And so, but to each their own. They're both fantastic, but I've always kind of leaned a little more towards more of the public or historical buildings.
Yeah, I think like. People like there's a particular TV show as well that say, we're here to help and stuff like that. But I think overall, this is probably the most thankless field, or the thankless pastime going, because you can go out your way. Like you could drive miles and miles and miles to get to a client, and really, you've got like your own social commitments, you've got family to deal with and stuff like that, and you go out your way to help these people, and then you know, at the end of it, you get like an EVP, or you don't get anything, and you give them a kind of an explanation, and you don't even get a thank you. And that was one of the things towards the end when I don't get me wrong, I do selected residential cases and stuff like that, but I'm very much the same where public buildings for me are better, but I would have to investigate them a lot longer than as opposed to a residential. You have to get the characteristics of the building and find that, as they say on TV, that hot spot where, you know, the things happen and stuff like that. And then, you know, like theatres in Vancouver, like when we did the Orphan Theatre years ago, that kind of place would take years to investigate properly, like throughout, because you have to find those spots because the place is vast and you can't do it in one, you know, you can't do it in 4 or 5 hours. That's the thing. But exactly, I'm pretty much the same. Like, don't get it, I do help people that really want to be helped, if that makes sense. But otherwise, it's, you know, I'll probably get criticism for it as well, being selfish and stuff like that. Well, my wife always says I'm selfish anyway, but it's only that point where there's no thanks in what we do, and I don't expect it all the time, but sometimes there's, you know, you really go the extra mile for people, and there's just nothing that comes back. And,
exactly. And I think some people will very disappointed when they find, I mean, it's we never considered it our job to tell somebody whether their house is haunted or not, right? Because we can't be there for what they've experienced. All we can do is sit there, and if we get something, we get something.
Exactly.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people wanted that diagnosis, you know, that their house is harboring some sort of, you know, poltergeist or whatever. And they can be very disappointed when we tell them, well, we can't make that determination because we didn't find anything. We didn't experience what you experienced. And so, like you say, very, very thankless sometimes.
It is. It's on the other side of that, it's when they reach out to you or you go to their house and they're like, yeah, what do you think this is? And you give them, my background's construction. I know a lot about the fabrics of house and stuff like that. And if I say that there's a problem with your furnace, it could be possibly that, or you know, and there's a stigma of VMF. That's kind of a bit standoffish, but there's various other characteristics that could cause paranormal. You know, people think that things are paranormal, but if you give your honest opinion about, you know what, speak to your landlord and get this done, and that done, and that done, and then I can come back, and they're like, I still believe it's haunted anyway. And that and it's just, you know, and it's the same when you get a picture of dust or, you know, sorry, an orb, and they're like, here, what do you think of that? And you're like, well, I can't really give it a true definition, but I suspect it's more likely dust. And they're like, and they don't like what they hear, and it's just like, why did you even come to me in the first place? You know,
there's a few times I remember, you know, there was a few times where we would go, and you know, you do the investigation. You're giving explanations for some of the reasons of, you know, why this is making noise or why this is happening. And you're not really catching anything paranormal, but you've already spent, you know, not only hours with the pre-interviews, the setup, you know, going through everything. So you spent hours and hours and hours. And, you know, when you give them your whatever, you know, paranormal. You know, they come back and they say, oh, well, you know, my next door neighbor who's a practicing witch says that it's, you know, the demon of Jeltabar, blah, blah, blah. And we paid her $800 to come in and cleanse. And you're like, okay. We're done.
Say goodbye to your $800.
Then, you know, then 6 months later, they're calling you back. Hey, can you help us? Can you help us? And you're like, no, click. We're done. Go pay your neighbor the $800. You know, we just took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours out of our time for no charge with no thanks. And you're talking to, you know, somebody who's running around their yard naked, screaming at the moon. So you have at it.
You know what? Isn't, you know, we got all the hours at home too while we're reviewing and we're going through everything and we're making notes and we're talking to the other members trying to debunk this noise. What do you got at 1 minute 11 seconds? You know?
Research, even historical research on the property, right?
Yeah.
And for them, you know, and so you do, like Peter said, you know, it can be very, very thankless. But then, you know, you do have those people where you've gone over to their house and they phone you and they're like, you know, I don't know if I'm crazy, but this is happening or whatever. You go over to spend that time and you just give them some, you know, you say, look, this is what we believe. We could do an investigation, but this is what we believe is going on. And they are just so grateful for that 15 minutes or whatever it is, because now they're not crazy. They're having an actual understanding as to their own home, their own property, and they now feel safe within, you know, within their environment, which is what everybody should be feeling. Right? We all should feel safe within our environment. So there's, you know, you get the two sides of that, and it can be a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but we've had some really good residential investigations where we believe we've caught stuff. I mean, we did multiple investigations at this one woman's house, and she doesn't live there anymore. She sold the place, but we spent several times going back. And one of the questions I always ask is, you know, because I guess I'll find out soon enough, is if there's a God. I just ask that, right? You know, and we had a spirit box going, one of the older model spirit boxes, and it's rambling through its frequencies, and this voice came through and it said, "Not God." It was so pronounced.
Yeah.
And it really tripped me out, and a lot of vibrations in that house, and you know, it didn't seem necessarily evil by any definition, but it was quite heavy, the atmosphere in there. And I remember feeling so bad for her, because we left and we're outside loading up our equipment. It's like 3:00 in the morning or something. And all of a sudden she hurries out of her house and gets into her vehicle and just books it on out of there. We're standing there.
We're thinking, oh no, what's just happened? Oh God.
I think Marlene messaged her, is anything wrong? And, oh, just going for a Timmy's run.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, we see the homeowner run out of their house and get in their car, like, off they go, and you're like,
what did we leave back there? Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you guys in the field, like Calvin, I'll start with you. What do you think? You guys have been around for a long time. What do you think the misconceptions are about what we do to the outside world?
Well, it's got to be the title of the podcast about the orbs. That's a massive misconception. You know, I think in fact probably one of the biggest. It would probably, because that is the one thing that once it kind of got out there with my friends and family and whatnot that I did this. I'd be at a dinner party somewhere, and inevitably somebody, you know, hey, check this out. I took a picture in my house and look at that. And of course, you know, it's a big fat orb, you know, and you know,
like,
and,
did you just vacuum? Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. And I've always said, lemon pledge is your defense against orbs. And so here you go. And so
a lot of money, wouldn't it, for a lot of investigators, isn't it? Just go out and lemon pledge. That's it.
Yep. Show up with that and do a cleansing. That's how, you know.
Or cleaning.
Yeah. So that for me, that's the biggest question that I get. And so for me, that would be the biggest misconception. The other misconception, and this is where almost in a certain way, it embarrasses me a little bit, I have to say. And that's the usage of the K2 meter.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll use it for baselines and whatnot. Yeah. But that's really about it. We'll have it sitting off to the side, and we don't use it as a. And if it starts to freak out and go off, okay, we'll pay attention to that. But a few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I was watching the news, and it's around Halloween, and that's of course when every news outlet goes out and finds a paranormal team and does an on-site somewhere. And this was in San Francisco, and they had some group down there, and they went and did a site visit at Alcatraz. And the guy's not even using a K2; he's using that little thing that looks like a toy, that the ghost meter, you know, that thing with the red.
Yeah.
So he's got one of those, and they're walking around the cells, and he's got this thing, and he's holding it out, and I got a reading over here. I got a reading, as if to imply that, there's a spirit right there. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my, like he's totally, he's totally dogging, like pony, it's, so those two things, and a little bit of an eye opener for me, because with when we use the K2, like I say, baseline, see if there's any nasty cable junction somewhere that could throw off readings, and that's really about it. So.
Yeah,
Marlene, what about you?
Oh, I gotta say, the thing that gets to me is right behind me, the Ouija board. It makes me crazy when I have people that say, oh, yes, I believe in all that. Oh, that's so cool. That's what you do. Oh, you don't use Ouija boards, do you? Oh, no, you're bad. Oh, you're going to invite something bad. And I'm just like, I look at it as a tool without batteries. It's one of the first tools, but there's lots of different things we use. Mm-hmm. And I mean, when I say not just regular equipment, but lots of other things that we use, like toys. We've used certain types of rocks, water, and I look at it as just another tool. I can't guarantee you that Ouija board or, this other piece of equipment is going to give me any readings. But it just drives me crazy when people start going on about the Ouija board. Oh, I played with that when I was 7, and we had a demon in our house.
Yeah.
For the optics of it, we would never take one to a residential investigation.
No, right. No. It's funny because if you look at it, if you think about it, I mean, the Ouija board is no different than a recorder, a camera. I mean, you're still, is anything here? Is anybody here? Can you knock for me? Can you dance? Can you do, like, it's the same dynamics. It's just a matter of a different tool. So,
exactly. Yeah. And I think the other thing too, it really gets me, is when we have residentials and they'll contact us and they're completely 1000% convinced they have demons. And I'm like, demons? And it's like, no, you gotta, you got some problems with your plumbing though. The plumbing pipes don't look so good, but I'm pretty sure, that right there, everyone automatically goes to the bad. It's a demon, Why is it never a sweet little grandmother that loves to bake cookies and just loves to be around you? Why is it always a demon?
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
By the time we go in there and leave, it's always a sweet little grandmother that likes to bake cookies anyway. It's just it's their interpretation of it being demons because what they see on TV, and it's got worse over the last 5 years because there's particular shows that everything's a demon, and
that's right.
All well for that particular individual. He's making a complete coin out of it, but he's creating that fear. Fear mongering between people that believe that there's a demon in the house, which is a total misconception.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Meanwhile, they're trying to exorcise their great grandmother, right?
Yeah. I want to bake more cookies.
Think about it. Just, if you think about it really logically, you would think a demon would have better things to do. Like, why am I going to go and bug, John the garbage man down the block when I could go and get into some of the government places, or I'm gonna go bug the mayor, I'm gonna go bug this guy, or, this guy's got some clout, I could actually have some fun over on this end. Like,
right, make a splash,
right, like why would you waste your time with
well, you get pictures every now and again of these little faint scratches on their arm, and they said it's demons, and there's like 3 scratches as well, and it's like,
and they have 10 cats.
I don't want to sound funny. If I was, if it was that stereotypical demon, I think they'd do a little bit more than and a few little scratches down the arm or the back, that kind of thing. But you know, it is sensitive to them as well. But sometimes you've got to take a step back when you're in that environment and just be honest with people. And sometimes they don't like it, as to what we were talking about earlier on. And otherwise, if it carries on, and they get another investigator in there that tells them something completely different, and that they actually believe in what they're believing as well, it can go absolutely sideways.
Yeah, so absolutely.
How do your family? So are they supportive? I don't know if you guys have families, husbands, kids, wives, anything like that, dogs. Are they supportive? Or
absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. The only thing is, when we go away on road trips and stuff, you have to juggle that family life. But yeah, my family's very supportive of it, and they think it's really neat.
Yeah.
And they would like to participate only when something happens.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't work that way.
They don't want to watch the videos and the 20 hours of review later.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, very supportive, very supportive.
Oh, absolutely. And, there's endless stories that I get asked to tell whenever there's family functions, and everyone always seems so interested. And that's usually when the phones come out with the orb pictures,
Yeah. Calvin's the center of attention at any dinner party. So tell us how it goes.
I just refer them to our YouTube channel. There, I got some stuff on there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what we do. Get on with it, kind of thing. But
what's your YouTube channel, guys? We can post it up here so people can see.
It's already plugged on their ad.
Okay, awesome.
It's up there as well. So we've got like 4 minutes, but guys, tell us about just quickly about your most compelling investigation you went on in relation to activity, personal experiences more than anything else, because I'm very selfish and I love personal experiences rather than evidence. So that one of those moments that solidified doing what we did, kind of thing.
Jeez. There's been a few. We had a chance to investigate an old nightclub that was also a strip bar, and the downstairs was kind of a gentleman's lounge, and we're talking like 70s here. And walking through there in the dark and having something thrown at me. And when we got the light on, there was a big chunk of drywall, but I'm like, well, I could have fallen off the ceiling, right? And saying out loud, yeah, you got a little bit more than that? I mean, come on. And the next thing you know, having my butt pinched really hard. And I got goosed. And I was like, ooh.
Well,
I'm just waiting for that moment.
Here you go.
Any day now. Come on.
Yeah.
That one was a shocker. And and then the other investigator, she got it too. And I was like, well, see, I'm not the only one then.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think for me it would have to be Kent Cemetery out in Agassiz, and this place is an old cemetery that's I think discontinued sometime back in the late 40s, but the municipality still goes up there and mows the lawn and everything. But it's on the side of a hill, and even if it wasn't crazy haunted, it would still look it because it's got all these old wrought wire, fences around the headstones. These old
on an incline.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's like the grouse grind climbing up this thing. It's on the side of a hill. It's crazy. But the energy in there is absolutely off the scales. We've had instances where I have come home and the next morning I have had scratches on me, which is something, it's you can take with a grain of salt. But I mean, I've had scratches on me in spots where I'd have to be an absolute contortionist to try to, reach, and we don't have animals in our place that would have done such a thing. So that really solidified it for me that there's really something there. And then just the EVPs that we've captured out there, but that physical contact, that was the hook, line, and sinker.
Right.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you for joining us.
It was such a pleasure to meet you guys.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. So little time, right? And
I know. It's once you start jabbering on, an hour's never enough, especially when you're talking about what we do as well. It's just it's never enough time. So, do you guys want to plug Coldspotters?
Absolutely. Our website is at www.coldspotters.com, and on there we have avenues to all of our social media outlets and a little blurb about the rest of our team members, which there's Marlene, myself, there is Joanna, and there's the great Milton Bradley. Hi, Milt, if you're watching. And we have Sue Bryant, which is our team, our local historian, and she does a fantastic ghost walk and true crimes walk in the Cloverdale area every year when the weather's nice.
That's awesome.
So that's something to keep an eye out for. But yeah, you can visit us there, and that'll take you to everywhere: YouTube, the Facebook group, and Instagram, and everything else.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you
very much.
And for you guys watching in the audience, please like and subscribe and click on notifications. We're still running the competition for 200 subscribers. A bit too much in the day. We're still running the competition for 200 subscribers. That's a bit of a mouthful. I'll be randomly picking a winner from that once we go over 200, and I will be donating $150 worth of equipment.
Nice.
Pretty exciting.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
Thank you, guys, and we will be back same time next week. Have a great day, guys.
Take care.